First, it's time for the hot topic of the hour. President Trump says he will sue JPMorgan Chase sometime in the next 2 weeks over accusations the financial giant debanked him and some of his family following the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021. The president making the announcement on Truth Social after denying a Wall Street Journal report claiming he offered Jamie Dimon the Fed chair role. JPMorgan responding with this: "We won't comment on clients, but believe no one's account should be closed because of political or religious beliefs, and our policies back that up. We appreciate this administration has moved to address political debanking, and we support those efforts." Now, Maria directly asked JPMorgan CEO Jamie Dimon about the debanking allegations last month. Here's what he told her.
Did you send over the bank records of Devin Nunes or Trump supporters to the special counsel when he wanted that information?
People have to grow up here, okay, and stop making up things and stuff like that. So, and I can't talk about an individual account. We do not bank people, debank people's religious or political affiliations. We do debank them. They have religious and political affiliation. We debank people who are Democrats. We debank people who are Republicans. We've debanked different religious folks. Never was that for that reason. And that's number one. Number two is I don't like debanking people. We live under very strict rules and regulations and requirements, and to protect the country, and we have to report things to the government. We're required to report things to the government. I can't even tell you when we do it, because I'm not going to tell you that either. And so I want to change these rules. I actually applaud the Trump administration, who's trying to say the debanking's bad and we should change the rules. So change the rules. We don't give information to the government just because they ask. We're subpoenaed. We are required by court to give it to the government. And I've been following subpoenas with this administration, the last administration, the administration before that, and the one before that. And I don't agree with a lot of it. The government does a lot of things that get angry at banks. So let's just take a deep breath and fix the problems as opposed to blame someone who's put in that position.
Liz, where are we with the relationship now, do you think, between President Trump and Jamie Dimon? It had seemed that they had a pretty decent working relationship that seemed to kind of flow through 2025. And now this threat and loss.
Yeah, I don't know why this came up right now, because this has been on the table and a discussion point for some time. Look, I think Jamie Dimon's made it pretty clear he doesn't like debanking. If it happened to President Trump after the Jan 1 or Jan 6 riots, probably that was the government somehow telling him to do that. I don't know. I don't really know why the President Trump wants to make an issue of this at this point. Jamie Dimon is one of the most respected bankers in the country. Maybe that's, I won't go there. But, I mean, the banking industry isn't beloved, but he is highly respected. And Trump has a good relationship for it. So why do this? I don't know. I mean, it seems stupid to me.
I think Jamie Dimon is an incredible leader. He's shown
totally
that many times. His interviews with Maria, for me, have been must-watch television. By the way, I want to get you about the Fed chair comment, because what President Trump seemed to have been responding to on Truth Social was this Wall Street Journal report last week that last year he had offered the Fed chair position to Jamie Dimon and that Dimon declined. Dimon had an interview with Bloomberg that they published. It was a print interview on Thursday. And he was asked again, would you take the role? And he goes, absolutely, positively, no chance, no way, no how, for any reason.
There sounds like there's a little beef between these two. These are two very big egos, two very powerful people. And Jamie Dimon, what I like about Jamie Dimon is no nonsense, right? He tells you how it is. He says, grow up. He's right. You should absolutely grow up. And I do believe that if they had to debank somebody, it was probably because of subpoena. It wasn't something that was out of his control. But there just seems to be here. And I think what I love about Jamie, too, is he's so diplomatic, right? Even the fact that Trump is coming at him here with this whole debanking, he still praised the Trump administration. He's good, and that's why he's been here for so long, and he'll probably be around much, past President Trump's
Jamie Dimon is
tenure,
tough. I mean, you don't survive in the world of Wall Street or in the banking industry in general if you're a shrinking violet. He's the opposite of that.
Yeah, but, and by the way, he has been good. I mean, Trump has been good for the banking industry. He has allowed a lot of consolidation to go forward and stuff, and Jamie Dimon knows that. I mean, he is much more closely aligned philosophically and in terms of what he'd like to see in terms of regulations with Trump than he was with Biden. But but he's not political. He just sort of says, you're totally right, says what he thinks.
We got to run, but real quick, Red, I did want to get your thoughts on, the big headline last week we were following was this 10%, this January 20th, which, by the way, is tomorrow. President Trump said as of January 20th, all banks will have to offer a 10% interest rate on credit cards, all credit cards for 1 year. The deadline's tomorrow. I don't know if anything's going to happen, but that's what the president said was going to happen.
Yes, I'm hard-pressed to see that actually happen. In fact, I think you need some sort of congressional approval to even do that. And again, when they charge those higher rates, that allows other people that bank with the big banks to get the benefits of points and other benefits from it. So I don't see them being able to change that or some sort of. I don't think Trump has the power to do that. Is the bottom line.
Yeah, my understanding is it would need congressional approval. An executive order would not be enough.
Exactly right.
From a legal
perspective.
Right. Yeah. So, but again, that is, that's tomorrow, is January 20th. All right.